At some level, all people of faith are pilgrims. The Muslim trek to Mecca, the Buddhist journey to Bodh Gaya, the Hindu to Chardham. Embarking on a spiritual journey is the manifestation of a deep-seated desire to walk in step with God, to experience His presence. In the Gospel of Luke from the ancient Christian scriptures, there is a story of two travelers returning to their hometown, a village called Emmaus. Their pilgrimage to the holy city of Jerusalem was over. They had just witnessed the crucifixion of Jesus, whom they had hoped was the promised Christ. Their Messiah, sent to redeem Israel and bring peace, was dead. Their friends, fellow disciples of Jesus, were claiming that their teacher had been resurrected from the dead. Some even claimed to see an angel in an empty tomb. This was all too fantastic for the two travelers to believe. They were consumed by doubt. As they walked home, lost in their disbelief, a stranger joined them on the road. He entered their conversation about this Jesus. When they got to Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, they invited the stranger into their home for dinner. He accepted. They sat down, and as the man broke the bread in front of them, their eyes were opened, and they recognized who the man really was. He was Jesus, the resurrected Christ. And immediately, he disappeared from their sight. Overwhelmed, they asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" Immediately, they got up and returned to Jerusalem to tell the other disciples the good news. We were captivated by this story. We wondered if Jesus still walked with people along the road from Jerusalem to Emmaus. We wanted to know if real people's eyes were still being opened to see a real God. So we set out in an RV patched with plywood as 3 investigators on the road from Jerusalem, Ohio, to Emmaus, Pennsylvania. And this is the story of our unexpected pilgrimage.
When I saw the RV, I knew it was Matt's dad's RV, and he had talked about it, and he painted this picture of a very frightening motor vehicle to be taking across the nation. There's a piece of plywood in the front. Not the most comforting thing in the world to see plywood on the vehicle that you'll be in for the next 4 days.
Matt described it as like a sort of beat up RV, and it was a little more beat up than I thought it would be, which made me happy, because I think that makes the trip better for some reason.
The RV got here a little bit late, and so it was the crew's first time that they'd really been able to see the RV and spec it out.
I actually looked at it and could imagine it making it 1,200 miles, which is what we have to do.
I think the RV is probably going to be just barely livable enough for the whole week, which is kind of beautiful. I think we'll struggle through it, and it'll be a story for the ages.
Plenty of room.
This is really good advice. Everybody give me your keys, and let's put it all in one central location, because after 4 days of not having your keys, you come back and you can't find your keys.
The only way this is not a good idea, can anyone guess? If we lose that. There's no wedding ring, too.
Everybody remember the keys are up here? The back door needs to be locked want to lock it, and the step always has to come up.
Are there any like other rules that we should know, like that's gonna make a wheel fall off or anything?
I don't think so. No wheels will fall off.
It is Monday, March 10th, 2:13 p.m. Our plan was to leave at 8:30. We're a little late. It's okay. We had the biggest blizzard in 30 years this weekend. So we're blaming that. What's mid-March without a blizzard?
We loaded up the RV and we left and we headed towards Jerusalem, Ohio, which is east of Columbus. And the trip from Cincinnati took about, I would guess about almost 3 hours.
So yesterday, the lady prayed that we're supposed to look out for a white house
Near the road.
near the road.
Huge oak tree.
Huge oak tree. Was she oak specific?
She said big tree.
When she first said it, she said oak. She may not know what an oak tree exactly looks like, but
She said that you'll know it because of the tree.
And the tree, she said, is almost out in the middle of the road. Basically, right?
the tree is huge compared to the house.
Yeah, I wanted to ask her, like, will that be towards the beginning of the trip? I didn't know how many like questions you could ask her without it getting weird.
So do you believe in that stuff?
I really want to. I think I do.
You don't think you do?
I do think I do.
Do you, Matt? No. When Matt and I came here, all that stuff was sort of like super foreign to us. Where do you stand now?
I know that it happens and I know that God works that way. I've never experienced it myself directly like that.
There's a deer. 2 deer.
2 deer walk into a road. Does it always have to be 185?
185.
Why?
That's the name of the game. 185.
185 deer walk into a bar, the bartender says,
Let's hear it. You started it.
we don't serve deer in this bar.
The deer says.
Deer says, why? We got plenty of dough.
There you go.
Yeah!
You could have said buck off.
Buck off. 185 pine trees.
185 pine trees walk into a bar. The bartender says, we don't serve pine trees in this bar. And the pine trees say, what for?
Snow shovels. 185 snow shovels.
185 snow shovels walk into a bar, and the bartender says, we don't serve snow shovels in this bar. And they say, we can't handle this truth. They say, what's the scoop?
Is that a pun? Is that what those are?
Those are puns.
Puns. Because puns are fun.
How far away are we right now?
91 miles from Jerusalem.
We need to decide then what we're doing today, when we roll into town.
So our first strategy is not to go into Emmaus praying for people, necessarily.
I don't think it is. I think our first strategy is to go in and try to find a story.
What sort of questions would you ask, say, a bartender?
I would just start with maybe like we're doing a documentary, doing a film kind of thing. What are some stories or some things that are going on in your town? And
We're doing a documentary about faith. Did you say that or no?
Yeah, I think you could say that. And then
We're traveling across America. That's true, right?
that is true. This is America.
That's our story. We're traveling across America looking for stories of faith.
America. Here we go. Here we go. There it is.
There it is.
Jerusalem.
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 When we came into Jerusalem, we really had no idea what to expect. None of us had been here before.
It takes more courage than any of us realized. It doesn't sound that courageous, but to go into a strange town and where everyone else is comfortable with you in the first place, and then to ask them if we can bring a camera crew in and talk to them, to ask them very personal questions about the things you're never supposed to talk about, religion and their family of origin.
How are we doing this?
I'll roll in.
By yourself?
Yep.
What are you gonna ask?
Don't you worry about it.
Do you want me to go with you?
If you want to.
I think I might go in. I'm gonna go in. They've been in there a long time. So.
It was kind of like a bar and grill type place. For some reason, I was really nervous. I think a lot of it was because I can't really articulate, I think, even in my head right now, what we're looking for. It feels like we're looking for stories to see, where God is showing up, where God is opening the eyes of people from Jerusalem to Emmaus in a modern way, but still trying to articulate that and make it in a way that someone could answer, and was just really difficult. I found it really challenging, and for some reason I was just really, really nervous. Is there a difference between the way that people connect with God here and the way they connect with God in the Philippines?
No.
I think what's the same about it?
There's only one God. And okay, how do you explain this? There's so many ways, but there's only just really one path to go.
Most of the people in the bar were really honest. The bartender was really honest. She's been through a lot of pain in her life. There was Dean, an older guy that we talked to, and he was just really honest about really not having any sort of relationship with God and not praying. And he said he wishes he did, but he doesn't.
And across the bar was this young guy who we later found out was Bill. And I don't know, for some reason, looking at him across the way, I just sort of thought that he wouldn't be into what we were doing, or the thought went through my mind to ask him a question, but I just didn't, because I didn't think he'd be into it for some reason. But then he is the one that said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And so we told him, and he just went off, just started talking to us, and to me, he ended up being the best part of the night.
I just moved here from Cleveland.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
That's crazy church. Different change every year. Definitely different.
What brought you here?
Family. I was in the Navy, and I moved out. Went on. I've been around the world, man.
He's been to Australia and Japan and Alaska and just all over, and so he's just telling us stories about his dad had a heart attack, and they had to get him off of the aircraft carrier back home, and they put him in this little slingshot airplane that went from 0 to 200 miles per hour in a few seconds. When you were getting shot off of an aircraft carrier, were you talking to God in that moment? Were you freaking out?
I'll tell you what, I was talking to God, but I was like, this might sound messed up, but I was telling the devil, I will commit this many sins if you just let me live. I'm not kidding. And I'll tell you what.
Oh.
How's your dad doing? He's doing good. He's doing good. He is. And if it wasn't for, who else can you thank for that? After all the stuff that I went through in that sitting, from the fires to this to that to that to this to my dad, then getting home and next thing you know, my dad's okay. Who else can you thank for that? Not me.
Did you pray, or do you feel like God just kind of
every night?
I enjoyed spending my time with him, and sort of naturally after a while progressed to talking about God, and felt like God was real to him, but he maybe doesn't think about him all the time. I could tell that there were certain questions that he would really stop and try to figure out, maybe for the first time in a long time.
To be honest, I think where my expectations were for today, in a lot of ways my expectations weren't met. For nothing to really seem out of the ordinary today, it was just kind of, I guess it was a little bit of a letdown, I'll be honest.
When we ended up getting to the bar and talking to people, I felt myself feeling like it felt right, but I still wasn't quite sure if it's what we were supposed to be doing. I have no idea why God sent us out here. I'm starting to believe more and more that he really did, that it wasn't just our idea. And I think really leaning into believing that he sent us and is preparing people for us to meet is more interesting than any sort of project we could invent. And giving him the freedom to lead us in the right places is really important to me.
Take me home, country roads, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River, Let's find a Walmart.
It was freezing cold. We couldn't get the generator to work. Yeah, it was awful.
I had to buy a sleeping bag at Walmart because I wasn't really aware I'd be sleeping in the RV. Thought it was kind of more for show.
The first day, I think there was a little sense of frustration with everybody, so I think we woke up, and I think it was just it was a consensus with everybody, you know, even the guys on the crew, that we just needed to spend some quiet time and just ask God what to do.
Things just kind of came to a halt in the RV because we just started to kind of clear our minds and start to pray through the day, and there was just a change of direction in many ways.
One of the things I felt after the prayer time was that God was almost upset with us, but wasn't really anger, but just frustrated, I guess is a better word, that we were treating it all so seriously. And I felt him saying, like, I'm giving you guys, you're like 5 grown-up guys, I'm giving you this opportunity to have fun for 4 days and to just go look for me, and almost like he wanted to play hide and seek with us. And he wanted us to treat it like we were kids playing a game.
Like kids just playing swords or lightsabers or something. They just play, and they don't know when to, they don't care to stop, or they're just having fun. And so there's just a sense of freedom that we're just gonna go out and just find God.
Way before we left on the trip, our friend Dave Workman asked us to, or he suggested that sometimes people pray and just ask God for an image or whatever comes in their head, and he called it a treasure hunt, that if we get stuck, maybe that would be a good thing to try. So we just all spent 5 minutes in silence and prayed.
And that was refreshing in itself in many ways, just to be quiet. And each of us kind of came back with pictures and things that we had seen in our own minds that we maybe thought God was laying on our hearts.
And just took a risk, and whatever we felt, whether it was an impression or a phrase or a picture, we just sort of told everybody what we were thinking as we were praying to see if it might make sense just to see what would happen, to see if it would paint a picture.
I had, for some strange reason, this boomerang kind of blue and red kind of, I guess, image, or just, that's all I could come back to, and a beard, and it felt really weird. I mean, to be honest, I don't think the prophetic thing is really something that I've experienced or something that I've really had any success with, if that makes any sense.
Our RV was parked right next to the freeway, and I tried to push that image of a semi-truck out of my head, which is the first thing I saw, but it just kept coming back, and it was this blue semi-truck, just the cab of it.
Then we took a treasure hunt, like scavenger hunt kind of approach to the day, and where we went out and we tried to find these things.
Which was scary for me, I guess, because when you have a plan, you don't like to change it, especially when so much is riding on it. And but I felt comfortable that it really was God saying, just, if you look for me, it'll all work out.
Immediately, like right away, we took a U-turn as we circled around in the RV, and there was a Travel America sign.
Did you see that right there? Did you see that Travel America sign, Brad?
America?
It's red and blue, and it looks like a boomerang. I think we need to go in here and look around.
We'll go in and say, hey, do you have a beard? And do you own a blue truck?
We started looking for this guy that maybe had a white beard. And to be honest, that's way out of my comfort zone and way weird, but we ran into a guy who, as we started talking to him, at first he kind of gave us the cold shoulder and really was skeptical about what we were doing and why we were asking questions.
Is there something that you've experienced in the last week or so where you've experienced like the presence of God while you work or whatever?
Yeah, I go back to the drop yard and I find the trailer and I back under it and my air suspension drops. The whole thing, straight down. All 4 bolts come out. So I'm waiting for a wrecker to come, and this guy all of a sudden got a real sharp pain right here, and he's going down. I mean, he's dropping to his knees. I rebuke it in the name of Jesus. I pray in the Spirit. I command it in the name of Jesus to leave. Nothing happens. I reach in my pocket, pull out a bottle of anointing oil. I just touched the man Before I could even open my mouth to say a word, the Lord touched him and healed him instantly right there. And he said it was like somebody's like a knife right there. Anyhow, I asked him if he was a born-again Christian. No, he wanted to know what that oil was, so I explained to him what it was. I says, God died and paid the price for your sins. He wants something in exchange. He wants your soul. Not a problem. Let's give it to him. We'll pray. And he took Jesus Christ right then and there.
Wow. I think it was encouraging. Part of the dark side of my spiritual life is that I'm a skeptic. So I've been able to justify away most of the miracles of my life. But if I look at it objectively, you know, I think God really did want us there, talking to that particular guy. That's when it turned for me, I think, that God was showing me it's not even as much about us finding stories, but about us being willing to do whatever he wants us to do for the next 4 days.
It's just neat, you know, because we felt a little bit defeated from the day before, and so it felt like God gave us a little something, and he's like, here, you know, like if you ask me for where I am, I'll show you, like literally the first step you take from the parking lot. And it was just, I think it was a big win, and it was sort of like, all right, if we just have fun, if we just follow the direction we feel like God gave us, this is going to be a good day. You know, we had that moment of praying here in the RV of where we're going to go, and Joe and I went back in to get a coffee, and so as we're walking out, the repair guy was like, there's this place you got to go to. This guy used to be a mayor, and now he's running this House of the Carpenter deal, and he's just doing amazing things, just helping people. And he's like, you got to go just under, you know, once you go through the tunnel and come out, there it is. And one of the things that I felt like I saw was just this idea of going through tunnels and stuff. And I didn't share that in the RV because I didn't know what it was, but hearing that guy say it's under the tunnel was just sort of like, huh, it's kind of interesting. I wonder if there's going to be something there.
My guess is that's it right there. I would just, no, I would park in front of this truck right here. This Sportage. House that a carpenter built. Watch that mirror and your little, shut up. What do I care? It's your insurance right now.
We pulled up to House of the Carpenter, which is on the river in Wheeling. We walked into a place, looks like a store, kind of like a Goodwill store, but everything's free. Is that they're giving clothes away to people that need them.
I was struck by Jackie down in the room folding clothes, and she's just a volunteer. And I was humbled by this woman who knew that this volunteer role that she had was like, it was her mission work, you know what I mean? Like that was her ministry, and she wasn't getting paid for it, but she knew what she was doing had purpose, and you could tell, like, she's sitting there folding clothes, and it was a very cool thing for her because she knew that people were being helped by what she was doing.
How does it make you feel to be able to serve and volunteer?
Real good. It's good to see the smile on her face, and you know they appreciate what we do for them, and they know that if this place didn't exist, they'd be in big trouble. You know, and we're the only organization around that's free. Every place else you have to pay or give a donation, but here it's free.
We've been asking people the open-ended question like, where do you see God at? Where's God working, or where do you see Jesus?
He's everywhere. He sees all, knows all, and he helps me to help those that, you know, sometimes can't help themselves. Like yesterday, I had nothing to do all day yesterday. There was nothing. There was no donations. Everything was clear in here, and there was a client that was going out to get a job but didn't have any clothes. So a gentleman bought in 30 bags of women's large clothes that was needed. So she came in today and picked up, I guess, about 3 bags. So that's a blessing. She had no clothes. This is what the House of Carpenter means to me and to everybody that walks through that door.
One of the things that really stood out to me at the House of the Carpenter was the way that I think God had used the mayor's influence to really kind of fulfill his will in the city, if that makes any sense. And also that he integrated not only his life experience as mayor or in the business world or just the House of the Carpenter, but how that was all integrated together to see a fulfilling picture of his ministry and his life. That was pretty cool to see.
Could you walk us through some of the stuff on your wall and explain, maybe start with the pictures? And
when I was mayor, served 2 terms as mayor here in Wheeling. I was active with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And before one conference, I called the White House, the office that cities relate to see if the president could come out and play, almost just like that. Of course, they wondered what lunatic is calling here to say this. To make a long story short, it came together, and there were a couple of other mayors who were available, and he had a couple friends in from Arkansas. So that's what those pictures are. The reason I have the shoes there is they are really the reminder of who we are. They were worn by a little girl who came into with one of our summer programs with children. So we put some masking tape on them to hold them together long enough to get her to a store to get her a pair of shoes. Actually, we got her a couple of pairs of shoes. And I kept the shoes, and I have them hanging on my wall where they are right in my line of sight from my desk. So when I'm having those moments when I'm getting a little full of myself, that look what I'm doing. The shoes are the reminder that I'm not doing anything. We're here serving the Lord, and that little girl is what we're all about.
I mean, some people might look at this and say, well, there's 100 social service agencies, and I don't know if you really need Jesus to do this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it about your faith in Jesus that makes you want to do this stuff versus just some altruistic helping humanity?
There's the vertical bar on the cross, if you will, that me and the Lord thing. I read my Bible and I study the scriptures and I pray and go to church, that relationship with God. But there's also the horizontal bar on the cross, and that's the neighbor, the relationship with the neighbor. And this vertical direction with the Lord is meaningless if there is not the inclusion of the neighbor.
Right.
So that's how it's a matter of just deep faith for me. I cannot sit and pray, God, I love you, and then ignore my neighbor. I mean, the scriptures teach if you say you love God and you do not love your neighbor, you're a liar. I mean, it's pretty bold language. It doesn't hint at it.
It's hard to get around that one.
It says liar.
Right.
So for me, it's a matter of deep heartfelt faith that to say that I love God is also to recognize that I must love my neighbor, no matter how unlovely she or he is.
They locked the keys in the RV.
It's right there on the table.
Ouch! You can see him in there if you want to look. We should have an extra pair. That would be smart, wouldn't it? Providence, friends. Providence. You're lucky.
Look at our RV.
That's security. Here. Don't break it. Hold it. Did you give me a boost? No. It's your fault. Oh.
I'll let us in, jerk.
Joe did that. He left it at the last place.
There might be a part of the RV missing. It might be my fault. We left Wheeling and went into Pennsylvania and decided that we would drive as long as we could and then stop for the night. So we pulled into Bedford, Pennsylvania, and there was an Econo Lodge there that sounded perfect for our budget, which was hardly anything. As we were walking out to the RV, Bobby and Mark, our crew, were talking to a guy named Stan who was living in his pickup truck. We had sort of decided that dinner that night would be kind of some downtime and not trying to find a story, but when Stan presented himself, it became obvious that we'd be spending our dinner talking with this guy, Stan.
You haven't used the word homeless to describe yourself. Do you consider yourself homeless?
No, I'm not homeless because I could have a home if I wanted a home. But I want to see if that's what God's will is. Because I'm tired of just trying stuff on my own. That's exactly what it is. I've tried everything myself. So you gotta, tell me where I'm supposed to be. That's what I'm waiting for. I've done it all myself and it didn't work. Or at least I don't think it worked. I don't want to make decisions that aren't right anymore. I question some of the decisions I've already made if they were right. Did I not do something? Like, didn't I give enough money to the church or give back to him? Did I not try to do things a certain way? I mean, did I not witness to certain people? Did I not? What didn't I do? I don't think you guys understand. If you're not looking for what he has for you to do, what he really wants you to do, then what's your purpose?
Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel like your relationship is with God right now, and how would you
my relationship with God is perfect. The only thing is I'm testing God. God and I talk to each other constantly. I'm driving my truck, I'm working on something, I'm going in a place and applying for a job or something. I'm saying, hey, well, Lord, what do you think? Am I going to get this one? What do I need to do? And kind of like so far, he stepped out and said, kind of tells me exactly how I have to react or what I need to do just to get it. It's worked. I walked in that place in Louisiana. The guy said, can you do this? Can you do that? And I said, yeah, I'll try. Give me a day's shot. If I don't pass, I was working. I had the job. I was head over all the other electricians. I had run wire or pulled wire for years. But see, I've done so many things. I've worked so many different places. I was a first-class machinist. When I got out of service on the GI Bill while I worked for Midwest Vaco, I actually got my degree in engineering and a degree in business administration. So I have 2 degrees, 2 BS's degrees while I was working for them. Of course, then with Blackwater, I got a lot of other training in, like technology and stuff like that, with like cameras and wiring and all kinds of stuff. So I learned a lot of trades. I was looking for another job and said to the Lord, well, this is a pretty low class area. Where am I going to find here to make any money? So I thought I'd try the warehouse to see if they still fight dogs. Sure enough, they fight them everywhere. It's big time. And it's big money. And I didn't see any way that I was going to. I watched a couple dog fights and it cost me like $10 to even to get into this place. So I thought, well, how in the world can I make any money at this? Well, I saw these bouncers there and they were collecting the money. And I said to the guy, I said, you need any bouncers? He said, no. I said, what if you need any really good bouncers? And he said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, how can you prove yourself? I said, I'll tell you what, you pick your best guy, whoever your best guy is, in any of your places. If I can't take him down in 2 minutes, then he just laughed at me. He laughed at me. He said, okay, 11 o'clock tonight, here in the ring. And the guy that they brought in wasn't from this place. He must have been from another district.
A ringer.
Yeah, pretty good size ringer. Yeah. Less than 2 minutes. About 45 seconds.
Really? Were people shocked?
Yeah. I had a job though.
Yeah. Stan was telling some stories that were... I flat out told Stan that his stories were unbelievable. I said, Stan, these stories are truly unbelievable. And he's like, yeah. The stuff this guy said was just insane. He had some chip that they installed in him that was stuck in his liver, and he got a liver scan, and there's a chip inside of him. He was in special forces in Vietnam, and he was getting trained by the 70-pound Vietnamese sensei or something that trained the Vietnamese guys. And he was talking about how he would just test this dude and see how far he could get with him, which was pretty similar really to what he's doing with God. And there was this moment where he did something to this sensei guy, and the dude staked him in the ground for 3 days straight and would just throw the slop, the stuff they didn't eat, and just the trash, and he would come out and just throw it on him.
I'm gonna let him stake me, which is...
Now this is something you will not believe. There's so many things that I can show you, but this is something you won't believe, and it's so simple. Sit down. Sit Indian style. Now, there's one part that's control, and I can totally control you. What we do is here's where the stake goes.
You sat like that for 2 weeks?
2 days.
Oh my gosh.
What do you think?
I don't like it. It hurts.
Can you get out?
No.
He's in search for something, and the way he's doing it is just really interesting, going from job to job and staying there for just a couple of weeks at most, just trying to find out what God has for him, and then he'll just blow off and go do something different. So like, he's got this life that's interesting, but at the same time it's kind of like heartbreaking.
If you could hear God whisper something in your ear tonight, like the deepest part of you, what would you want to hear? Like if you could pick it and he could say it, what would you hear? What would you want to hear God say to you?
Stan, this is going to be your home, and this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
And what's that? You want to know the answer to that?
That's what I'm looking for.
What if I know the answer to your question? You might not like it, but I feel like I gotta say something. So.
He wouldn't be the first person that told me they had an answer.
Okay, I don't usually tell people I have the answer, so for what it's worth. Part of it is I'm younger than you, but I've lived probably as many lives by this age as you did. I've done lots and lots of things. A lot of things. And what I learned is, for me, God didn't care. And I had to wrestle with that. He didn't care what I did at all. And at first that pissed me off, because if he loves me, he's supposed to care. I think he wants me to tell you that when he sees you, he still sees you as a 5-year-old kid, and he loves that kid. And all he wants is you to love him. And he doesn't care
what happens,
what you do. It's like your grandkids. If your grandkid was here, my hunch is you would just be happy that he's in the room.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't care if he's eating mac and cheese or chicken nuggets. And I feel like a little bit you're asking God, what should I eat? A little bit. And
Yeah,
he's saying, from his perspective, maybe that's as trivial. So I would kind of be disobedient if I didn't say that stuff to you. It's kind of not the point of this whole project, is for me to go around and tell people stuff.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you to a certain extent. But the thing is this. If I don't give him that opportunity, which maybe I forgot to, or maybe I didn't, to lead me in a specific way, then I think that I failed him in some way. So I'm going to give him that opportunity now in my life. Maybe it's too late. You know, maybe he's like turned to, which I don't think it is, because he's with me every day. But maybe it's too late. But if he wants me to do something in the mission field, if he wants me to be a pastor, if he wants me to speak as an evangelist, if he wants me to do teach Sunday school, if he wants me to like work with little kids, if he wants me to do whatever, it's time. Right here's you got my full attention right now.
I think he loves you so much he wants you to do whatever you want to do. And like a 5-year-old kid, not like a 53-year-old guy or a 22-year-old Marine.
Could be.
That's my hunch. At the end of that night, we prayed with Stan, and I just felt really led to tell him that God was more concerned about who he was than what he was doing, and that God might not reveal an exact plan for his life or the next step. But ultimately, I really had the impression that God wanted Stan to know that he loved him the way a good father loves a little kid.
Peace be with you, honestly. Good luck.
Peace is with me.
Can we pray for you before you go?
Sure.
That'd be great. We'd love to do that. You got it?
Yeah, I do. God, thank you for Stan, and
bringing him to us and us to him. God, I pray that you would answer his deepest prayers, even the ones he didn't verbalize to us tonight. God, tonight, I pray that as stands alone and he processes this, that you will give him the answers he's been looking for. That tonight you would be as clear to him as you were in Vietnam when he met you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Nice to meet you, brother.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Hang in there, man.
Yep. Oh, I'm here.
Cool.
Here to the end.
All right, we're going to go.
See you, Stan.
It was even colder that night than the previous night, and Matt and Brad decided that they were going to sleep in the RV again because that's what real men do. But I decided to stay in the hotel room with the crew.
Well, actually, when we checked in that night, they said there's going to be breakfast. So I wake up, walk in, Joe's like, they're giving us free pancakes, which is cool.
I have a slight addiction to the pancakes. I try to eat a low carbohydrate diet, but then I find pancakes irresistible.
The ladies made this breakfast for the construction workers that are building the Marriott right beside them, which is going to basically take away a ton of business from this place. I just thought that was really neat that they're serving the very people that are going to change how their business is going to run. There was a guy that was sitting a kind of a table over and just started to have a conversation with him. And we thought he was the owner because he just fit in. He just looked like he belonged there. Came around to the story that he had actually been a trucker, had been coming through hauling produce. Truck broke down on the turnpike and just by coincidence landed at this motel.
It was 22 degree and the inside of my cab was 32 degree before help came.
Oh, how long were you there?
Probably about 6 hours.
Really?
Before help came, about 8 o'clock. It got pretty cool.
You've been gone from Phoenix for...
I left on the 1st of February, and I've been on the road since, and this was my last run. From here, I would get a load back to the Midwest and Midwest home for Easter. And normally I don't stay out that long. Normally I stay out for 2 to 3 weeks, but this time I've stayed out about 6 weeks. Everybody says, when are you going to retire? And I don't know. I figure I got to get old first, and I'm only 70, so there's really no need of thinking about it yet.
Bob asked what we were doing. I told him that we were just looking for stories about God and trying to find God, still assuming we're playing the game that God told us to play, to look for him everywhere. And he told me that his son was a pastor in Germany, and he got his computer out and he started showing me videos from his son's church in Germany. And he's really proud of his son. Found out later that he's still a truck driver, not because he needed the money, but because he wanted to be able to help fund his son's church in Germany so that he could tell people about Jesus.
Everett was a guy who had a story to tell too, and went through a lot. And 2 days before we met him that morning, he was homeless with his dog, living on the streets of Harrisburg, actually. And said he ended up in this hotel room by the grace of God.
I was diagnosed with a disease called familial Mediterranean fever. Very rare. My chances with my Anglo background, I'm getting more like 1 in 20 million. It's mostly Mediterranean and Israelis who have it. I was the 7th person in the United States that NIH knew about who had this. It's just that rare. But because of the work I was trained to do, I couldn't do it anymore. At 23, I got a full retirement. I still have my ID card, says U.S. Navy retired on it. At 23, I got 20-year benefits. When I got back at the Navy, went back to school, to the University of Maryland, and in my senior year in Maryland, I was converted to Christ. I just pretty much missed the last half of my senior year because I was sitting outside reading the Bible. All I wanted was the truth. And I remember praying a number of times, Lord, if I just see a true miracle, I will believe. On February 19th, 1978, I believe it was 12 years to the day after my very rare disease began, I was in a motel in Lee, Massachusetts, and I was having, in the way up, I was having the worst attack I'd ever had. It was, I was in so much pain, and I was actually vomiting blood. I thought, this has to be an attack of the devil. I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up. I thought those words. My exact words were, Father, I am your son, and you love me. Now heal me in the name of Jesus Christ. 2 seconds before I prayed that prayer, I never had the faith to believe I was going to be healed. When those words came out of my mouth, I knew I was being healed. I knew it. And 12 years of pain and 6 months in hospitals around the world and 100 milligrams of Demerol every 2 or 3 hours for the attacks stopped like that and never came back. People aren't healed of FMF, and the Navy wasn't going to say I was healed by the Word of God or the power of God. They couldn't say that. And I said nobody's healed of this. You're in remission. Well, I've been in remission for 30 years now.
Wow.
I was never in remission for 3 months before. I'm healed. And so God used that healing to rebuild my faith. It went way beyond anything I ever had before. And He's used it over the years many times, because once you see the power of God in that way, you never have an excuse for believing something can't happen. But the purpose of this isn't to heal per se, heal in itself. It's for us to know God more, the God better. I mean, there's so much more to life. Our flesh is passing away, but our spirit is not. And that's where we should take everything that God does for us and make it another way of knowing God. And we should be looking for the spiritual meaning of what happened to us in this life, in the flesh.
And I think that's one of the things that I've found interesting about this trip is, like, we meet these people where God is like showing up, and I don't know, you kind of assume if God shows up in these weird, miraculous ways that maybe these people have it all together, or they're not perfect, because I know they're not, but like, God shows up with people. God shows up in people's lives even when they're really, really broken. And he shows up in miraculous ways even though people are messed up and will continue to mess up. And I think that's been, we can't earn God's divine appointments, and we can't earn God's providence. He's going to do it just because He loves us, regardless of our screw-ups.
Candy and Sally were like best friends, and their relationship had been able to go through several different seasons and had been able to grow, in their families and their extended families, and even people that they didn't know 2 days ago became like a woven patchwork of community, and everyone working together, everyone supporting each other, everyone encouraging each other. And it was sweet. It was very sweet.
What is it about these people that can make Bob, the truck driver, feel so comfortable in 2 or 3 days, and honestly make us feel so comfortable in a couple hours? There had to be something special about them.
How's your hospital corner?
That looks about right.
You okay?
Do you have any questions for me?
Not really.
Yeah, why didn't you consider it help?
The hearts of these women in this restaurant, in this cafe, the last thing they thought about, I think, was turning a profit. Maybe to a fault, I don't know. But their highest priorities were community and serving the community and loving each other and serving and helping and supporting each other. And I don't think that's something you see every day. And it was something that was so important to them, I think, in the very way they expressed their love for each other and their care for each other. And it renewed my faith. It gave me so much hope. One of our camera guys, Bobby, one of the things he saw in the previous day's prayer time was a Waffle House. And it actually, through the day and a half, kind of turned into a joke where he kept telling us we had to stop at a Waffle House, And so it was just kind of this funny thing that we hadn't found it. So we're driving up and we see a Waffle House. And I'm driving, so I pull in and I'm like, all right, Bobby, here's your story. Run in and get it.
White toast? What would you like to drink? All right. All right.
This lady rang me up for the coffee, and I gave her a couple bucks. And she asked what we were doing. I said we're telling stories, we're making a film about faith. And her eyes sort of changed and lit up. And she said, "Oh, I could tell you a story about faith."
I've been a drug addict. Was a drug addict, still one, but for 15 years I was a drug user. And I was explaining to him that I didn't do it on weekends, and I didn't just do it once in a while. It was every day, all day.
How'd you get started?
My very first child passed away when she was 11 months old. I had a picture-perfect life at that time, you know, a good husband and my first child, and we both worked and we struggled, and you know, I was still going to college at the time, and everything was, she'd be 21 right now. But that was the start of a down, you know, the only thing, I can't blame it on anything. I just made the conscious decision. I was given a choice, and I made the choice to get high, and I liked it, and it liked me, and I was a disciple to it, and that's the way that was. And
It's interesting language.
Interesting language.
That you were a disciple to the drug.
I was definitely. It was the general. When it said stand up and salute, I did. There's nothing else that mattered.
Weird question. Like, it's pretty expensive, right? Like, how did you afford it?
That's where the illegality comes into all this.
Are you willing to talk about that?
No.
That's
I just
fine.
did some things that I don't sit well with me, and I don't. And
that's fine.
I degraded myself. I was a derelict. I was down. And I was no good for anybody.
How in the world did you become a disciple of God?
I've always, but see, this is, you know, when you're instilled, like when you're saying you're raised in the church, even though I wasn't raised in the church, I always had something instilled in me. And I always prayed, even as a young kid. Now I lay me down to sleep. As a young kid, that was my prayer. And without saying that, I couldn't go to sleep. So it was something instilled. I prayed constantly. And even in my worst of days, the days where I'd be hungry and drugless and quite miserable, I would even say, please, Lord, do something for me. And I'm not saying that to say that he would give me any of those things, but I always made it through. I didn't have to sleep on the street, and I got something to eat.
So you felt like God was beside you even when you weren't maybe living the way you weren't living?
I definitely wasn't living the way he was.
But you could feel that he was still with you somehow.
Always.
Did anything happen in your heart or in your spirit that felt like you turned a corner again?
I guess I'm too much pain in my kid's eyes. I don't know. I can't give you a specific. I just know that he's, when I ask for things, he gives them to me. And I finally broke down and asked him with a sincere, contrite heart, please remove this from me. I've had enough.
How long have you been sober?
2005, but it's either August 9th or May 9th, but I don't put validity in that because I know it's 2005 because I don't want, it's not a date about a date, it's about knowing where all my power and strength comes from. And I'm not a gospel, I'm not a Bible toter, I'm not one of those, I just know if anyone asks me a question about what I believe in, I'll get passionate and very verbal, and I know. And
You're doing great.
really?
When you pointed to your friend and talked about, do you remember what you said before the cameras were rolling? You were saying I'm not a church person, but can you explain that again in your own words, what it means for you to follow God?
I have a personal relationship with him. And see, I talk to him like I'm talking to you. I don't do all the these and thous, and I read the Bible, and I like reading the Bible. It's a love story to me. I've read the Old Testament, it just sounds like a love story, and you get so enwrapped in it and involved in it, you don't want to put it down. One of those books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know what to say to you. I just feel like I'm repeating myself. See, it's a hard thing. It's like what's in here. I know what he loves me and I love him. That's all I know. And what I tell you, as long as I love you like I love myself and treat you with the same respect that I'd want to be treated and make him first, everything is going to be okay. I know that. That I know. Right?
That's what it says. In that love story, it says that.
That is a love story. That book is a love story.
Her story was just real, and she didn't have all the answers, but at some level, I left her story feeling like she had things to teach me about faith. There's something about her and her sincerity and just her resolve that God was with her. I was thinking we could get you and Jay from IT to do a Tenacious D cover band.
Does Jay play?
I don't know. I've been thinking about it. Looks like the other guy.
I actually don't think Tenacious D is funny at all.
Oh! Hold on! Wow! How that stopped.
We're still wearing mics.
Holy Lord. That wasn't my fault, right? No. No, it wasn't.
I'm sure glad you weren't singing about a supersonic man at that point on the camera.
We'd have kept going.
When we stopped last night, we were really only about 10 miles away from Emmaus.
Before we left on our trip, some friends prayed for us, and one of the ladies said that we would see a white house with a huge tree in front of it.
The identifier would be that the tree would be bigger than the house, and that the house would be close to the road, and it would be unmistakable.
And that if we saw that white house with the huge tree, that we wanted to stop. There was a lady in there that we needed to talk to.
At the beginning of the trip, we were looking everywhere for it, and I think maybe even by the end of the trip, it had just become a joke. Every time we'd see a white house, we'd say, is that tree big enough or whatever?
I think me personally, I was a little bit skeptical of it, but open to it, and I was hoping that it would happen, but didn't. I don't know. If it didn't, I wouldn't have been surprised that it didn't.
I'm kind of nervous.
I had that excited feeling.
Yeah.
Like you have to go to the bathroom.
I feel like we're the most people that have been the most excited to come into Emmaus in a long time.
Yeah, we got to start just going into establishments. We're here.
Hey!
We're here.
We are.
Welcome to Emmaus. Welcome to Emmaus.
That's our house. And
We
tree
got
right
fun
there.
and games.
That's it. I'm gonna say that's it. No, the house and tree behind it.
He's right.
Holy cow, that's a huge tree.
He's right.
That's it.
He's right. That was it. That was clearly it.
That's a huge freaking tree.
It's part of the church, I think. It's
Really?
the parsonage, maybe.
That's a huge tree.
Did you know that tree? Did you know that was there?
No,
Have you seen pictures online?
I'm not.
You sure?
I promise. I promise.
Wow. Okay.
Ready?
Let's go.
And all three of us just sort of knew that that was it. It was probably one of the top 5 goosebump spiritual moments in my life, where I think I was a little skeptical the whole time about that vision or whatever. But as soon as I saw it, I knew that was it.
It's a big tree.
That's a big tree.
It's close to the road.
It's, yeah. Dude, that's nuts. We walked into the foyer of the church and immediately met Diane, who was working there, was one of the pastors there. And immediately in my heart, I sensed that all the other times when we've gone to meet people, we've gone to meet people and hear from them. And I felt different about this one because I felt like she was there to talk to us. I just instantly knew, like, we're going to connect with this woman. There's just something about her.
And we felt like God wanted us to end here. This is our last stop, and
Oh,
Did
how
you tell her about the
beautiful.
tree?
we haven't told her about the tree yet.
Let's not tell her about the tree yet. That might freak her out.
no, it won't freak me out.
I'm always nervous when we first meet someone that they're going to just tell us to get out, especially when we're in a place that I feel like we're supposed to be. And she had exactly the opposite response.
Cool. This is awesome.
Our church is very different than this, so I think we're happy to be here.
The verse that we've been reading in Emmaus says that their hearts were strangely warm. And that's kind of how we felt. We felt like we were where we were supposed to be. And there was this tinge of excitement and nervous energy that I think we all had. One of the ladies that prayed for us, you know, kind of a prophetic thing, said that she felt like we were looking for a house, a white house with a large tree, and that the large tree was close to the road, and that we would know it when we saw it. And it felt like we did because of the house out there. So that was really kind of a neat.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
As soon as we sat down and started talking to her, I just had a sense that this was it. That I didn't know if anything amazing was going to happen, but I just felt like that for the next 30 minutes, this was why we went on this whole journey. At one point, I just wanted to give her the opportunity, and I said, you know, do you have anything that you feel like you can teach us, or that you feel like we need to know? And she started to talk and started to, for me, she started to confirm a lot of the things that God had been doing with me on this trip, and the ways that God had been talking to me on this trip.
I think at your ages, it's wonderful that you're pursuing what you're pursuing. I need to say that it is all around you, and it is as magnificent as the Transfiguration, and that can be part of your daily living. It is something that will illuminate your life, especially when you're joyful and happy, and you'll have that sense of not wanting to come down from that mountain and staying there forever. But it will also motivate you to come down from the mountain and to carry that light and that torch. Even from the trip that you have taken and all the things that the people have said, I think when you begin to sit down with that and sift through all of it, you will see this really exciting, bright light of Christ just surrounding everything that was done for you. And I always want people to walk through the valley of the shadow. I continually say, God doesn't leave us stuck there. He walks us through it so we get to the other side. So whenever that comes in your life, know that that presence, that mysterious peace that really uniquely knows you, like Psalm 139 tells us, will touch you at those times. Open your hearts, open your minds, and open your souls to that peace.
She said distinct things that were deeply personal to me, but that in the context of her conversation were just general to her. But to me, they spoke right to my heart and right to where I was. I felt like I was ministered to by someone I'd never met. And that was different and unique and special. And I think in many ways I'm different because of it.
So tell me more about things that are going through your minds and hearts and souls.
We kind of started out, we were trying to look for stories that kind of sequentially went with a teaching series, you know, and how they fit together and mold together. And one of the things we just felt like God was saying, I think Joe said early on, that you're taking a very kid-like assignment and making it very adult, so we needed to have just fun with it. So in many ways we just started to have fun and started to just see where God was working in people's lives, like normal people's lives. And that started to happen like immediately after we kind of did that. And we've met some amazing people, some amazing stories, some stories that make you skeptical, some stories that fill you with hope, some stories that I think in many ways just leave you feeling way better than before you knew it along the way.
Virtually everyone we've talked to has had a God story. I guess I was more skeptical that that would be the case than actually is. I just assume there's a lot of people that spend their whole lives ignoring God or not thinking about Him.
Or hiding it.
Yeah, but even those that, lots of people say, I don't go to church, I'm not a church person. And then they'll start telling some beautiful
But they're
God
spiritual.
story.
Yeah, I always get, I don't go to church, but I'm spiritual.
At the beginning of the trip, on a phone call, our friend Karen from work told us that she felt like something big was going to happen when we broke the bread and had communion like they did in the story. And so we're talking to Diane, and she, like, without leading or anything, she just starts talking about how important communion and the sacrament is to their church.
To me, it's that belief that He is in me and always will be, and will take me through it. So the giving of that bread allows me to go on, and that's why communion is so important to me.
Is that something you could do for us before we leave?
Sure. Yes. Mm-hmm.
We honestly left today thinking that we were going to give someone else communion, but it became obvious to me that I needed that. I wanted to receive it, and there a desperation for the Eucharist that I've never had in my Christian journey. As we were actually taking communion, the bells were going off in the chapel, and a hymn started to play, and it was the Old Rugged Cross song, which I haven't heard in maybe a decade or longer.
Our Lord Jesus Christ said, "Take and eat. This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me."
This trip's been strange for me in some ways, because we're riding around the country searching for these stories. Some people have experienced like miraculous healing, or just they feel the presence of God, and like I want to feel what they're feeling and experience the story with them, but I just haven't been. I was frustrated that I wasn't getting to like experience or find God in this whole thing. Today, when we took communion with Diane, I heard him say, "Stop it." He said, stop looking for this perfect story, or stop trying to feel things. That's not it. The story's the cross, it's the crucifixion, and it was just, it was intense.
Like everyone, I've been on a spiritual journey my whole life, and there are certain things that have been constant. Some of those things are a desire for simplicity, a desire for real community and real friendships, and just knowing that it's more than a religion or whatever. I didn't plan on this whole thing being bigger than what it was, but it was for me. And that there's a mystery to God, and He didn't hold back with us this week. I feel like He gave us mystery after mystery. And there's also a real tangibility, a simplicity that's the opposite of mystery, just a hands-on part of Him that I found with these guys in friendship. I felt with Diane just a real person sitting there, not some mysterious God that I had to try to relate to. And both of those things, I think, is what I love about God, that He is mysterious and beyond me, and really strange. Like I can't even grasp Him, and then at moments, just very real.
During this trip, and in the last just several years of my spiritual walk, I've had a Jesus-centered philosophy and a Jesus-centered theology. And during this trip, I experienced things through the Holy Spirit that I've never experienced before. And I had experiences with the Holy Spirit speaking to me in ways that I've never encountered before. And almost every time they were affirmed, and they were confirmed by things that we saw and things that we experienced. And it was a testing God. As Stan said early on, in many ways we were testing God, and God showed up every time and confirmed things. In many ways I'm different because of it.
And so to come on a trip and get to experience that God's real, but in a way that I never would have guessed, is pretty amazing. And how that affects what I do from here on out, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, we had no idea what would happen on this trip, but every day we woke up and just asked God to show us something, to lead us. And things did, you know, like every day was surprisingly easy. You know what I mean? Like, we just rolled into a town and God showed up.
I thought this was going to be a story about God, or it was going to be a story about people that we would find along the way. And I think I was ambushed at the end to realize at some level it's a story about me and my friends, and about us doing something probably rather ridiculous and silly, just some idea that we had, and God taking the time to meet us. There's all those Hallmark greeting cards that are about life being a journey and not a destination, and it's very trite. And I think what I learned on this trip is, as trite as it is, it's true.
You know, this whole journey thing, like, people talk about journeys and we talk in the metaphor of a journey, but in many ways coming to Emmaus has been a significant journey for me. That's changed me, I think, forever.
The journey there was what it was about, and we were there 3 or 4 hours and turn around, come home, and we're on our way home now. So I'm looking forward to the journey back with these guys, and really looking forward to getting back to my main journey at home and being with my wife and kids and telling them what I've learned, reconnecting with them, and then connecting with my church family and telling them what I've learned.
When we were leaving Emmaus, we were talking about how it's weird that we just sort of came and then just turned right back around and left. And that wasn't like a specific part of the plan that we were doing on purpose, but we remembered that that's what happened in the actual story. That the dudes came to Emmaus, they broke bread, Jesus showed up, and then they immediately turned around and went right back to Jerusalem and told their friends about it. So I guess that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go back and tell people about it and show that 3 normal guys who were somewhat skeptical, when they sort of open themselves up to the possibility of God being real, that He does show up, and that cool things happen. swear we burn through more gas doing this kind of stuff than...
I was gonna say, I bet you burned some fuel in this motorhome.
I don't know. What happened?
I don't know if this is gonna fit. I don't think it is.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we definitely.
No, it's not. But we're safe. I didn't hit it. You just slammed on the brakes for fun? No,
The dust fell off. How did you not hit it? The dust fell off. That wire wasn't hanging out though.
That was really close.
It wasn't close. You hit it.
I know, but
Say it wasn't close.
but no, it wasn't. It was.
It's 4:35 on Thursday. Yeah, Friday morning. Friday morning, and we are home. A little disappointed. We were kind of expecting a party. People waiting for us, clapping, and a cake. That didn't happen. But we're really tired. So we might as well go home anyway. That's just probably best. Probably better that way. We don't have a cake.
I drove home. That's all you're getting.